One of the most difficult things for an artist is to accept and implement feedback. When you spend hours, days, even weeks or months on a project, it almost feels like we raised a baby. And feedback is like sending that baby to a beauty parlor where the only judge is Simon Cowell. And make no mistake, that is what feedback should look like. You don't need a friend here that doesn't want to hurt your feelings. Ideally, you want someone who understands what you're going for, who can figure out and articulate where your shortcomings are, and, major cherry on top, someone who can do all of that without making you feel like an amateur. Accepting and implementing feedback is one of the most important things a creative person has to master if they want to make a living with their music. And thankfully, good feedback isn't hard to find. But sometimes we have to do a little analytic work ourselves. So here's 10 techniques to getting the most out of your feedback. Number 1 is watch close. When I ask people for feedback on my songs, what they say afterwards almost doesn't matter. If they're bobbing their head along, smiling all the right places, maybe even cry, that's the kind of reaction I'm looking for. For a long time, I had a big problem with people talking during my songs. I since learned that that doesn't have to be a negative thing. Sometimes we feel the need to break tension. So if you wrote a very tense, maybe sexual song, this is to be expected. Number 2 is play your songs for different people. It's often easier to find emotional reactions in muggles, people that don't know music theory, that don't write songs themselves. And so my number 1 feedback giver has always been my mom. She can be terribly blunt, but she's usually right. Don't underestimate the muggles. They often intuitively understand music just as well as we do. Number 3, identify fears. As I said, with this muggle kind of feedback, you have to do a little more digging. You have to translate what they say into what they mean. So if your feedback partner says something like, "This felt really cheesy," it's your job to figure out where the cheese is. And asking questions isn't always the best way to do that, because unless it's about the lyrics, muggles often can't identify what's bothering them, but give you an answer nonetheless just to prove their point, because they don't want to seem like they're criticizing without reason. Be aware that these natural kinds of fear play a major part in the feedback you're getting, and try to factor out those particular comments. Number 4, control yourself. You can already see how important it is to understand a little bit of behavioral psychology to be able to weed out the good feedback from the bad. But to facilitate a good environment for feedback, you also have to be very aware of your reactions. Your gut instinct is going to be to defend yourself, to explain why you made these decisions. It's called identity protective cognition. Being told something that goes against your beliefs triggers your brain in the same ways that physical pain would, and automatically puts you into fight or flight mode. Remind yourself of that when you feel it kicking in. It's only natural. Try to control yourself. Just listen. You can ask questions like, "What did you think of this? Did you notice that?" Or "How did this make you feel?" But this is about them and their experiences, not you and your ego. If you catch yourself talking more than 30% of the time, stop and hand the conversation back to them. Number 5, show your songs to musicians. Giving your songs to musicians will get you very different feedback than what you get from muggles. Their answers are often more technical, or they try to turn your song into one of their songs. That doesn't have to be a problem, and it's certainly helpful to have another pair of ears check your track for bad writing, but be aware of this. Also, and I learned this the hard way, pick musicians whose style you like. Nothing worse than doubting your track and later finding out that what they would have done would have completely ruined your track. Alright, now this is turning into a longer video than I planned, so we're gonna cap it off here and continue next month. See you then.